There we go. Thank you everyone for coming out tonight to the Nashville Data Nerds. There we go. First, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Alex Antonison, and I am the organizer of Nashville Data Nerds. Tonight's sponsor is me. I'm sponsoring Data Nerds through my consulting group, Intense Consulting Group, where we provide services ranging from business management, process improvement, data engineering and architecture, and data science. If you're interested, learn more, please feel free to reach out, or you can check out our website. Some organizations that are associated with Data Nerds I wanted to call out tonight were National Software School. I'm sure a handful of you are familiar with them tonight, but if you aren't and you're interested in getting into software development or data, I highly recommend checking them out. They're just fantastic people, and if you really want to get a jump start into the field, you should definitely check them out. I also like to call out a group called Penny University. It's in a community focused around connecting people with interest in topics and having a conversation together. We're primarily based out of Slack. So if you ever have any questions ranging from data to software development to startups or even parenting, we have people run all sorts of types. Last but certainly not least, we have Dalila, our conversation leader tonight, and she will be leading a conversation about Nashville traffic data, which for those of you who live in Nashville know it can be a bit tricky. Of course, it's calmed down a little bit in COVID. The agenda going forward is normally Data Nerds, it's just typically an open conversation. But as we all know, that's a bit hard to facilitate via Zoom. So if you have any questions, please post them to the chat and I will be moderating. So as there's a nice spot to kind of pause Dalila, I'll kind of pause her, ask the question and kind of go on. And the last 15 minutes is where we kind of open up for group discussion. And last, any links, sources, as well as a recording of the meetup. Usually takes me a couple of days after the meetup, I will be sending that out. And without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Dalila.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dalila. Thanks for coming out tonight to this meetup. I will have a couple of questions for you guys. So if you hear me ask a question, please don't leave me hanging or just kind of out there. Let me go ahead and share my screen with you guys and we can get started. Okay, can everybody see my screen? Okay. All right, as soon as I go into presentation, I won't be able to see you guys. So I just wanted to let you know that. Okay, so today's presentation, this evening's presentation is going to be an exploration of traffic data in Nashville. So I did this presentation for my project that I did when I was in the data science cohort for Nashville Software School. And I started that in 2019 and graduated in June of 2020. And the reason why I chose it was because pre-COVID times, I was having a really tough time getting from my job to class. So I had like an hour. I got off around a little bit after 5 and I had to make it to class at 6. And every evening I felt like I was a few minutes late for class and I was just frustrated. So this is kind of the inspiration for that. So I thought about Nashville traffic and I thought to myself, okay, do widening of lanes in Nashville make any difference to traffic? And where can I get data to analyze this? And where in Nashville, like what section of town should I even analyze for traffic, since Nashville is about a medium-sized city? And just again, to reiterate that all of this data is pre-COVID times, as I'm sure you all can imagine, all of that traffic dropped in March, whenever we had shut down. And so I knew that you can get public access to data in two places. You can get it from the city at Nashville. I think it's their data hub. And those who go to Nashville Software School might be familiar with that website where you can get data from the city for free, but you can also get data from the state as well. And so if you go to tn.gov/tdot, they have some information, some traffic information for whatever region of the state you're looking for. I couldn't find everything there, but I found a good amount of data where it took a look at average daily traffic in different parts of the state that they monitor. And in terms of roads, they monitor the highways. The local roads would be the city that you're a part of. And then the rest of the data I got from a contact I knew at TDOT, who's just sent me large files of data, really. And I'll get more into what it looked like. I also chose a specific part of I-65 because I knew that that area before had been like 2 lanes of highway on each side, and they expanded it. So this is the part of Nashville where West Trinity Lane and I-65, and it's a lot of turnoffs. So you can go to I-24, you can go to I-65, you can get off at West Trinity Lane, and it's near Nissan Stadium. Is everyone kind of familiar with that area of town? Somewhat?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I remembered that back in the day, it was a very small section of town and they recently expanded it. So I figured it was a good place to try and analyze and see whether or not traffic had actually increased or decreased over time. Okay, so after I got my data from tn.gov and from my contact at TDOT, I had over 30 million rows worth of data, 32 columns, and I had data from 2011 to 2019. And they gave me not only data for that section of I-65, but they gave me data for 440 as well. Because at the time, I think when I was doing this, it was late 2019. I don't think they had finished 440 yet. It's finished now and it's finally great to drive around there, but I think they were still in the middle of construction at the time. So it was an option for me to look at that. I ended up just doing I-65 data though, because it was 32 columns and over 30 million rows. It was more than enough information. Should I stop for questions or are we good?
So far, we're good.
Okay. So I did this analysis in R. And so I used RStudio and I used tidyverse. And tidyverse is to R what pandas is to Python. It's kind of like the main package that you would use. I also had all of my results put in an RShiny app. I used Lubridate as well, another package, and that was to help parse through dates. There were columns in my data with timestamps, and so I needed to be able to parse through that to do analysis by year or by time or different things like that. I also used ggplot to do some plots to show some scatter plots or some line graphs of data over time. I used ggmap as well to show traffic along a specific section of the highway. I also played around with maps, and that was a package in R where it already has preloaded maps on there, so you don't even need a longitude or latitude. It already has like the state of Tennessee in there predefined, and you can put in counties and things like that without you having to have longitude or latitude in there. And then dplyr is also used for things like filtering or slicing, arranging data. You can also use it to use pipes in R, where you would take results from one step and pipe it into another step. So these were basically the packages that I used to analyze the data. And so after I did that, I really wanted to focus on the story I was trying to tell. And I needed, because I had so much data, I needed to figure out what was relevant and what wasn't. And so when I took a look at the data, I had things like average speed, I had time, so I had these timestamps, and it was every single 5 minutes. They would do a read on cars and throughout the day, 24/7, every single day. So I had speeds ranging from like 0 all the way to like 90, 95 miles an hour. And so I needed to figure out if I was going to average these up, or if I was going to look at specific times or specific days, things like that. And so I knew that I wanted to focus on widening of roads. And so I knew that I needed to focus on probably filtering down on time of day. So I chose like the rush hour time. So that's when I use Luperdate to help me zone in on morning rush hour time and evening rush hour time to see if there was a difference over time. And the columns included latitude, longitude, which I could use for GGMap. It had the intersection, it had the road, it had the zip code, it had the corresponding timestamps. I think I got lucky because I had so many rows that the data was already clean, so I didn't have to worry about going in there and scrubbing data. I'm sure you guys know from your own data, looking at your own data, that the hardest part usually is the cleaning part and getting it into data that you can actually analyze. So it already came pretty clean. So I was lucky there. And so again, I used the tidyverse and dplyr to look at the average, and Luperdate to parse through the timestamps. I also decided it would be good to look at holidays as well. Usually Thanksgiving week or Thanksgiving weekend had a lot of traffic. So I wanted to look at those days over time and see if after the construction was done there, if traffic got any better. Since that section of the highway was so close to Nissan Stadium, and when the Titans were playing there, I assume they're gonna be playing there soon. I wanted to see if traffic was any better then as well. And so I created another table and used dplyr to join that together with my data already to create an analysis for that. And so this is some of the plots that I did with ggplot to show what the results would be. And so I had a time period, and I had the average speed after construction, during construction, and pre-construction, just to show what that looked like. And these plots are with ggplot. And here would be a scatter plot that I used as well to show what the average speed was during the morning rush hour time. I used a facet plot with ggplot to do that. And I also used to get the colors that you see there on the side. I also went and did a ranking system that showed the lower the speed to assign it a red color, and the higher the speed to give it a green color, because I thought that it captures the eye better to see. what the speeds were during the morning time. And this is the same thing. We've got another facet plot through ggplot, but this time for the evening. And it's the same idea where I used a ranking system for the average speeds to do that, to show that. And then this is a regular line plot that I used as well. Pretty simple line plot through ggplot. And one of the things that I do like about ggplot as opposed to something where you would use in Python is that anytime you're trying to make a plot with ggplot, you just add the argument one after the other. You kind of daisy chain it together, as opposed to Python, where it can be, depending on what you're trying to use, it can be a little bit more complicated. And so, and this is the table I had for the average daily traffic as well. That was fairly easy to get. That was just an average that I did through in R to get that. And so finally, I put it all together. I used the visualizations that I had, and then I'm not sure if, how many of you guys are even familiar with R or R Shiny apps?
I'm a huge fan. R is my actually go-to language for doing like statistical analysis, just because of all the built-in functionality that you can do directly in it.
Yeah, so I got to speak to a couple of you in the breakout room, and I know that some of you guys are in Nashville Software School. And I think somebody, I think his name was Ross, said he's thinking about data science. And so I'm not sure if you learned R Shiny apps in the analytics, but I know that you do it in data science. And so it's a really good way to present your information and have it be interactive for the user. So I did create an R Shiny app that the user could go to, and they could pick their own year or their own holiday and cycle through and see for themselves what the traffic at the time looked like. So it takes some learning with the UI and how to get everything placed, and where to put your buttons and things like that. But I thought it was pretty good, and it was the first time I made an app too, and it worked, so that was nice. So it's something that I would recommend that you guys get a chance to look into if you get a chance. So some of the pain points that I had with the data was definitely the amount of data that I had. That might have had to do with my computer. It was extremely old. By the time I got all of the information put in there, it was like I'm on my last legs here. But once I managed to whittle down to what I need, I had about 8 million rows after that. So it was a lot better. And then I would say that the date parsing also took some time for me to figure out. I think Lubridate definitely helped with that by the time I discovered that package, but that took some time as well. And then kind of crafting the data into what you want to present, and then making the graphs, and then being able to kind of edit yourself and knowing what is important for you to present with the story that you're trying to tell. Because you end up working on the project and you create lots of really cool looking graphs, and then you don't need it all, or it doesn't contribute anything to the conversation. So you have to let it go. So that was another pain point for me. And I think that's it. So I don't know if there are any questions.
Would you be up for showing us the app? If I'm putting you on the spot, please don't feel pressured.
I feel like I probably could, but you'd have to give me a second to find the link.
Well, okay, while Dalila is looking at that, does anyone have any kind of questions or comments?
Yeah, Dalila, since you're such a big fan of R, what would you recommend for someone that would want to start learning that? Is there any Udemy courses or any books or anything like that? Or
I'd recommend Data Camp. That's how I learned it when I was at Nashville Software School, but you can definitely use Data Camp to help you get started with that. And then at least you could learn the basics from that. And then if you just got some data from, say, Kaggle or something and downloaded RStudio, you could practice with actual real data, because that's when you actually, learn it.
So Julie, or here, you sent me a message. I'll reply to the message.
I know that you're looking at your app link right now. I would love to explore it on my own as well. I did my mid-course project on traffic in Tennessee, so I'm super interested in the topic. And you found some sources that I don't think I was able to find. So if you have any links to some of those sources, I'd be super interested in seeing them.
Okay. Where have you collected your data so far?
So I focus on the whole state as opposed to just Nashville. So I use the T-dot traffic counts that I assume that you probably use as well. But I was interested in construction projects. So any of the information, I'm not sure if you found information regarding construction projects or if you just knew that there was one going on at the time. And that's why you focus on that one spot.
Yeah, I kind of pulled that from my memory because I knew that that lane had been widened. But I'm trying to think if they have on the website. I feel like they would have on the website different areas.
They had some, there's not a lot of collaboration between the state and the individual cities. So it was hard to get good, sufficient data across more than just, one project at a time.
Okay.
But that makes total sense. Yeah, what you've done.
If you want to, if you want to talk after, I can just try and put you in contact with the person I spoke to at T-dot, if that makes it easier.
Totally, that'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, I found it. Let me share my screen again.
And everyone, I will be talking with Dalila after this and get all the links and stuff gathered together as well. We'll be getting her slides from her. So I'll be sending that out to everyone.
Can you guys see my screen? I can't see you, so if
yeah, we're good.
Okay. So this is what I did for special events. So I chose what I thought would be the holidays with the most amount of traffic. And so the first one here is the 4th of July. And then you can add New Year's holiday on here and compare it for traffic over time. Thanksgiving week, I added that as well. And you can compare that year by year. And also this one is labeled Titans, but it's when the Titans had their games as well. And you can compare the traffic from year to year. And then there's one here for rush hour traffic. And here you can adjust the time. I think the timestamps were in military time, if I remember correctly. So, but you can choose the miles per hour. Okay, here we go. Like, why is it not changing? So yeah, so you can add, it's like 56 and it'll just add on the data and information and change as you add the filters or add the times as well. And it'll change down here and add the different times. So that's for rush hour traffic. And then this one was simply traffic over time, where you can add by year. I think in 2011, I didn't have as much data as the rest of the years. So you can add by year, and you can see what the traffic looked like over the different months. And here was the average speed on the y-axis. So mine is okay, you know. I think there were a lot of really nice shiny apps that were presented for that mid-course as well. Mine was kind of simple, which I didn't mind. I felt like I got my point across fairly effectively without having too much stuff going on. And it had to access a lot of data as well too, so yeah. Any more questions?
Did your findings match your actual experience, which inspired the project?
So I found that like right after they widened the roads, I think they finished the construction at the end of 2015. So like right after that, the traffic it was pretty good. And then maybe like the year after that, it started getting bad again. Because I feel like the common theme is that it doesn't, like when you widen roads, it doesn't actually help traffic. It just brings more people onto the road. So that was part of me looking as well. And then I felt like it didn't even end up being relevant because two months later, everything was shut down and everything. There was no traffic on the road. So I don't even know if it's gone back to the way it was pre-COVID times. I'm not sure. So many people working from home still.
Did you find anything else that surprised you when you were looking at this?
Yeah, there are people going like over 90 miles an hour at 4 o'clock in the morning on the highway. So that surprised me. But they say DDOT says they have sensors on the road. They don't use it to like send to the police station to track people or give people tickets. It's just to look at, see how the traffic is doing.
That's really interesting. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
When you had the Titans games as some of the events, was that an average, or did you choose a couple of games out of the year?
I chose, I went to, I think it was the NFL website, and took all of the games each year that was a home game for the Titans. So it wasn't actually that many a year, to be honest.
Got it.
So I love our Shiny apps. I think they're kind of a pain to make, but also I think they're like a fun challenge. And I think that they're really good for like interaction with them. But I have not rarely ever seen them used or discussed outside of class. So is that something that like you've experienced people using our Shiny in the real world, or is it more just for like independent projects?
I guess I'm not really on the development side of things. So maybe I feel like I can't really answer that question. Like maybe if I were more into like using and developing apps in general, I would know, but kind of what I do now is more of like modeling, and then it's sent to the development side, and then they do something and make it more user-friendly for the client. I'm not sure. Maybe Alex knows.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've worked on some analytics teams where we did use our Shiny for visualizing our model results. Shiny is just a great way you can take a handful of charts and kind of bring them to life in a Shiny app. We on the team put some templates together that kind of reduce some of that like kind of, you know, starting from scratch kind of thing. So that kind of helped with, you know, we had some templates where you could just go in and kind of put in a few plots. But no, especially for groups that are our shop, absolutely valid. Now, that being said, a lot of companies that I know, you know, a lot of them are Python shops just because of consistency between, you know, software development and that, and instances in Python, you have Plotly Dash, which is another alternative for putting together something like Shiny. In my experience, I think Shiny is easier to make a Shiny app than it is in Plotly Dash. But it varies on, you know, what your experience level is in Python. But no, it's absolutely a valid platform, you know, for using for creating apps.
Cool, thanks.
Do you have any recommended resources for picking up our Shiny?
I would say that our website has really good examples of our Shiny apps, and it's where I went to figure out how to do my our Shiny app. Let me see if I can, oops, I stopped sharing. But let me see if I can bring it up.
The data camp was really good as well. It forces you to make like 6 Shiny apps of the process. So it's long, but it really forces you to learn how to do it.
And they have really good examples as well. And they have all the code there for you as well. Here we go. But they've got examples here on their website of people that use our Shiny apps, and they should have all of the code there for you to be able to reproduce it yourself. But yeah, it's definitely where I went to figure out all the links and how to do the UI and how to make sure everything is interactive. Yeah. And I can put that in the chat.
Yeah, and I'll grab that and I'll add it to my links list. Any other questions, anyone? Awesome. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap up. Thank you, everyone, for calling in tonight. Thank you, Dalila, for leading the conversation on national traffic data. And as I mentioned, I'm going to be collecting a list of all these links as well as the recording of the meetup that'll be posted to YouTube, and I should be getting it out in the next week or so. Thank you, everyone. Hope you have a good night.
All right. Have a good night.